Did Moss Levy have any trouble dealing with it, Black Mountain?
In the beginning, I think he did, but then he educated himself, and then they actually
There's
have,
that as well.
they actually have other clients that use Black Mountain. Now, the other company had made a comment that they know Black Mountain, but we weren't for sure if.
Convinced of that?
Well, I wasn't here, so I didn't hear
The
that.
first gentleman spoke to that question, is he was familiar with Black Mountain, he said no. But he said he's not always familiar with the programs that they use. It's good information in, good information out, but they have the ability and technology, which he stressed, gives them the ability to pull out the information that they need, that they don't necessarily need to know what software or what company you're using.
I disagree, because my notes specifically said that he answered yes, he knows the software.
Black Mountain?
Knows of it.
The first guy?
Yeah.
First one,
Mhm. What'd your notes say? Yeah.
I do not.
I have no way to check it
I have a question.
I would, okay, that's fine. That's what I recall with him
out.
saying.
Working with
that.
the auditors,
He said yes. He
The
said he knows
information-
software. You may have not fully understood what he was saying.
I would agree with you.
Okay.
so working
That's
with the
all I'm saying.
auditors, the information that they're pulling out of our system is to see if we
He
are
was facing
billing
me, so I
people
could-
the same way. So he randomly goes into our system and pulls, at least on my side, pulls a whole bunch of things and see if I'm billing per our policies. That's all he's looking for. He's going through and seeing randomly how many units of water were used and did we charge them correctly? And then if we're doing our deposits correctly, our, refunds, all that kind of
Based on
stuff.
governmental standards.
Governmental standards, it really, the system itself doesn't, I feel, matter. They're gonna get.
Okay, so
what
I'll
they-
ask the question again, who does staff want?
Well,
Because
as I
that's what I
stated,
wanna
I
know.
stated to the board members that on the two that were present for the interviews, I was a 50-50 split. The first guy presented himself very confident, had a very good, strong history, and he answered questions thoroughly. The second one that was here is the one that provided the service before, so they're familiar with Black Mountain, they're familiar with our department. They were competent, but they didn't forthcome with information as detailed as the first interviewer. The third,
And I believe that was because there's a certain familiarity being in the room with people that he's been working with. Didn't need to go into the detail, assuming that, well, they know that.
Okay,
Yeah, but if you look at.
People do terrible interviews when I've done it.
How do you
I've been
guys,
interviewed by 3 people that I've known for 15, 20 years, and I get a little too casual with them, and then don't get the job.
It's interview suicide to go into an interview where you are competing against other companies for the business. And you say, well, you know how we performed, our experience and our previous work speaks for itself.
I agree.
Well, it doesn't, because I wanna know how you feel about the work you performed. You tell me. I've seen it, sure, but I wanna know about it. So that to me is interview suicide. That's what number 2.
you as a board though have had 2 or 3 audits by previous auditor. He came in here and presented those audits to you.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel how those were
We had
presented
an
to
auditor
you?
that sold me the first 2 minutes he was in the room, and he's the worst auditor we ever had.
But how did he present the audits that he did do to you?
He
How
didn't, he didn't
Not
complete
him.
them.
Not
But
him,
he gets
but,
somebody else.
I know, not him, but our last 3 audits were presented to you.
Well, just a point on, we're talking about Black Mountain and whether these people know the programs or not. And yes, there is a benefit to Moss Levy having understanding and knowledge of the workings of the program, and there's no learning curve because it's already been done. With that said, if you went with Marshwell, yeah, there's a learning curve on year 1, but years 2 and 3 there's not, because now he already knows the program. So he's in the same position that they would be in today, because he would have had to learn it in years 2 and 3, doesn't apply. So you asked if it was worth
So that puts
$3,000.
it
Well, I
puts
don't know,
you
is it?
behind the curve, right?
Puts it 1 year, but
1
you
year.
talk about 3,000 over the course of 3 years, that's really a $9,000 difference. So is it worth $9,000 for them to know the program up front?
They always give us a list of what they want, and we have to pull that out of the system. They don't go get that from the system.
There is option.
How much phone time did you spend?
On the last couple years,
Yes. Was it all done by email?
All done pretty much by email.
Okay.
How much for you? Mostly email?
Yeah, not
But
very many.
they're very responsive, very walk us through, especially through the hard times that we were having. They were very
We
helpful.
also had a CPA in here that was very knowledgeable and
helpful.
provided and knew where the auditors were looking at what they needed to provide. It was very, very helpful.
Okay, so we can make this really, really simple.
Too late.
For me, the hours is really a consideration when it's a not to exceed. And there was a big difference in the hours
Yes.
provided. And the one who knows our system provided far more hours than the other.
Okay.
So for me, that would be one of the deal breakers for me. I'm comfortable knowing that he does know us and he offered up more hours to complete the job where the other didn't.
So there's
Is
your.
all staff agree with
Your
that?
answer,
Does
but
everybody agree with that?
Answer for Joe, that's great. So-
Well, do you agree
Rob
with that?
speaks for us.
Yeah. So how about we look at this two ways? There seems to be consensus from staff, and I think there's some consensus or leaning of consensus that Moss Levy is the better choice, only because they've done it prior. However, I'm not gonna speak for you. If there is a leaning of the board members in that direction, and that is the leaning or the consensus of staff, just because they've given us a number and proposal doesn't mean we can't negotiate.
Yes.
So if arguments were being made and the numbers were exactly the same, who would we pick?
So, but as I said from the beginning, I call it a 50-50 split because I think you presented really well, knowledgeable. There may be a few little issues, like you said, their first year, they weren't completely familiar, the next two they would be. The
Well,
hours,
if it's a 50-50 split, then why don't we just go to Moss and Counter and say, these guys will do it for this, will you do it for that?
Can we do that?
Elaine, yeah?
Sure.
That's what I said.
And then you'll have your answer. If the answer's no, then well,
Then we're back
because
here.
it's 10 grand over 3 years, correct? $9,000
Nine.
difference?
We are on a time schedule, not to push it, but we are on an audit schedule.
Well, then.
As
bring
some
it
of
in.
these books had already, if you guys looked at these books, they said they already wanted to start before this meeting.
I didn't know that was a fair way to.
I also think that Moss Levy based their rate
can't start till after.
on previous
Right,
problems that we had.
which we don't have anymore.
Right. I mean, we did most of their work through this last audit.
Okay, so let's look at one more way. So instead of, we can say we want them to either equal what Harshwell's cost is, number one, or two, remove the escalation. There's a price escalation year on year. In my mind, if you're already doing the work, you've already come familiar with this, the job's gonna get easier. It's not gonna get harder.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might be spending, paying staff time or whatever, but the fact of the matter is that is really the cost of your personnel gonna go up? Not really. So I would say either attack it one of two ways. Either say, we would like you to meet the price of the lowest proposing company, or we'd like you to remove the escalation of cost year on year.
I like that.
And see if they can be
That's what
done.
they were the last 3 audits, they didn't
So-
done very much at all.
So I'm not seeing $9,000, I'm seeing,
It's 3,000
it's
total.
3,000 a year.
Per year?
No, no, total
Total.
is 3,000. It's $1,000 a year greater.
No.
This is the max for 3 years.
I'm inclined to go with what staff wants, and
here's-
that's, like, quite
here's-
honestly,
now-
that's where my vote would go, because they're the ones who have to work with it.
So they're proposing 160 hours versus 89 hours. Okay, and the other company was 84 hours. So I do believe that the number of hours they're proposing is based on past experience, and that we should go back and get clarification from them.
I agree.
I would like to direct staff, with consensus of the board, to go back to Moss
Maybe.
and Hartsman and ask them if they perhaps made an error in their FP for the hours, because they're nearly double what the other two proposals were,
But is it
and you
relevant?
wanna give them the fair opportunity to adjust that number down.
I mean,
And,
at the end of the day,
figure it
it's-
right around 25,000 for the 3 years.
But we're really concerned about the cost. I mean, honestly, I don't really care how many hours you dedicate to the project. For me, it's what it's gonna cost.
Right.
If they wanna spend 2,000 hours to it, and it's still the same price,
Well,
I
yeah,
don't care.
but, I mean, how can two other agencies say, be within 5 hours,
They've never done
They
it.
don't
and
know
they're
us.
70 hours old?
That's,
I see, this is punishment.
They enjoy your company.
Director Sangster, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
You reviewed the affiliations of each organization. Why, is it misleading how the way Harshwell presents his affiliations?
I didn't take it as misleading, no.
Okay, because it's listed here on this, right, as 3 separate organizations, but those organizations all are just AICPA. So, and,
It's really one.
right, the other organization belongs to 4. So I didn't know if that was misleading.
Well, that
or-
was me condensing their,
Okay.
Okay, so I just gave staff
I just
direction.
kinda
Is there,
downloaded what
is there a
you put down.
consensus from the board to go forward with that?
I personally, I would just support most
Okay,
lady.
and it's looking very strongly like we're gonna be having another special meeting.
just closed
That we
session
could,
special.
we could have one open item session in that meeting, along with our closed session.
John, couldn't
Yes.
you just, vote on approving Moss Levy if you can get them to adjust whatever amount you wanna say and then it's approved? Or if they're like flat?
I don't think that that's a fair way to go about it. I think that it requires some negotiation and then consideration from the board.
So are you asking for an adjustment in the hours or the
I'm
rate?
asking them to, I'm asking you to point out to them that they're suggesting that it's gonna take 70, almost twice the number of hours than the other 2 agencies that quote us. And give them the fair opportunity to look at that and go, oh, you know what, yeah, we've been here. Maybe you need to point it out to them that they've been here and done 3 audits, and that it's not gonna be such a hardship going down the road.
It's not the hours, it's the amount of money. You like
But-
actually said,
well,
you don't
speaking
care.
of amount of money, are we gonna
Yeah, but the
continue
amount
to
of
give
money's
Kramer
based on the
$100,000 a year?
But, and that brings up a legal question. If we go and contact Moss Levy about that,
Exactly.
that means, if I'm not mistaken, because I thought another agency got sued over it, you have to then go and
Contact
tell
the
the
other.
others and say, hey, we just reopened the bid for Moss
I
Levy.
see, yeah.
Anybody have a motion?
I had a concern about that, but it was my understanding that we were,
We can negotiate, but.
could not,
Opening the
Do
bid.
we have to negotiate with everybody?
No.
Like
My
we say
understanding is
we're-
that you can negotiate.
It's an RFP.
With everybody or
It-
just that one
I
particular?
agree, Anthony.
Well,
It's
if the
sketchy.
board's direction is that they want to go with Moss Levy pending negotiations of the contract, then go negotiate with Moss Levy.
So here's the way it works.
No obligation to notify the other
I don't
organization.
believe so, I can double
Right.
check before
Believe
Rob
so.
does that, but I don't believe so.
Okay, so if you were publishing a request for proposal, an RFP, the way it works is you go through the evaluation process, which is what we've done. If there is, the proper and best practice is to issue a notice of intent to negotiate along with a notice of intent to award. So if you notify Moss Levy, we intend to award, we're also intend to negotiate.
And that's a good point, because in our RFP, it says we will by July 1st have notification of award or something that we put in there in our part.
We did something right.
No, but we need to do that by July 1st, something like that has to happen.
Sorry.
There's a comment,
So-
staff comment?
I have a comment. It's,
Staff comment.
you're looking at
So
some,
so this is what we'll do, by tomorrow midday, I will have an answer for Rob. And then, if we're able to issue a notice of intent to negotiate with Moss Levy, then the staff will do that. If not, then we'll have another special meeting, and then you guys can figure out if you want to award the bid to somebody else.
I'm not gonna be here. Well, I'm not.
Is there any
Well,
motion?
it was already made clear that I will not be here next week.
Are
Will there
those,
be a consensus of the board? Well, there'll be 3 of you guys at least.
I have no problem going with Moss Levy. I'll make a
Then-
motion to go with it.
Then,
But I would like to give them the
Then make that
opportunity.
motion.
I would
Then
like,
each
I'll make a
meeting,
motion, I'll make a motion to, approve Moss Levy Hartzman for our next 3, annual budgets, audits, and, but I would like to, give them the opportunity to adjust the hours that they believe it's gonna need and adjust the price accordingly.
Accordingly to
So
them.
the number of hours that, I think they made an error, I really did. And I think that the price is
So,
based on the number of hours.
in RFP, we did ask them to break down.
Can I do, is that good enough?
That's a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor.
But is the motion legal, in terms of, holding us to our,
She's trying to explain it to you.
In our RFP, or where I was now, we did ask them to break down their cost of who's working what and how many hours they would be
Saw
working.
that in the book.
And that's how they came up with that bottom line.
I understand that. And I think it was based on the history they had with us.
Mhm.
But those hours totals, are those annual for each audit? Or is that an accumulative for all 3 years?
There's no way to know in the document that we were presented.
It's
So
not
can you answer
The
that?
cost is broken down,
You-
but are the hours?
You compressed the information, was that, are they planning on doing 30 hours? A year,
It's really just,
or
and we
is
can
it-
look at it here if we wanted to, it's literally a breakdown, 'cause we've asked them to break it down. Let me show you.
What is it broken down annually?
So here, that's the page they give us, and so it's not, it's just,
Hours? So I assume, okay, so that's for 1 year,
Per year.
that's per year, right? I don't believe it's gonna take 160 hours a year to do that.
But the question that we would not wanna ask them, we don't wanna ask them if their hours are accurate.
Yeah.
What we're really concerned about is the bottom line. They're willing to give us 160 hours for the same, basically the
For
same money as
$1,000 less?
that
Yeah.
someone else is willing to give
Okay,
us
fine.
84 hours.
I withdraw my,
It's the price.
can I withdraw or do we have to vote no on it?
didn't get
It didn't get seconded, I can
it did
withdraw,
not get
right?
seconded, it died.